Welcome back to Professional Perspectives. I'm Arav, joined by my co host Praneeth. Today, we're bringing you the final part of our three-part conversation with Mr. Varun Prashant Gangal, a researcher working at the forefront of AI generation, evaluation, and alignment.
In parts 1 and 2, we covered Mr. Gungal's journey through academia and his hands on work with large scale AI systems. In this finale, we'll look ahead, discussing the saturation of AI, the motivations driving current research, and the future of intelligent systems.
That's right, and we're excited to get Season 3, Episode 5, our season finale, started. And now transitioning slowly as we start to wrap up the episode, maybe in 10 to 20 minutes, we're starting like a rapid fire section where we just ask you questions,
Okay.
and it's like a
Right.
very quick yes, no, or like
Sure.
what are your thoughts on
Go
this?
for it.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Sure.
these are just like really quick questions, and there's no really
Sure.
need to go or kind of like
Yeah.
worry about it, just
Right.
like really quick.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so to start, if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of career advice, what would it be?
Uh, I'd say working in a research lab, like an industrial research lab for at least 2 years before doing PhD would be one.
Yeah, that's definitely a really good point. But okay, and I
Mhm.
also wanted to talk about this from another podcast. In the podcast, someone said that the saturation of the AI market field is so much so because investors believe that if the AI market even causes 5% of the global economic disruption in the world, it would make the saturation 10 times over worth it. What do you feel about that statement? And do you think that the AI world is able to cause really like a big disruption and like really shift the economy?
So the difficulty with that 5% is it is hard to find out whether how much is priced in. That is so that's why I'm not able to decipher the truth of this statement. Like whether I don't know whether this statement is falsifiable because it depends on the window and there are a lot of things which are already priced in by a lot of people. So the current state of the economy may already reflect it to a certain extent the expectation for that 5%. Yeah. Yeah, I think it uh
Okay, yeah, awesome. And also, when you were talking about parameters and like the undefined parameters, how do you
right.
think we can help define those parameters and kind of solve that issue?
Yeah. So I think one thing would be that your okay, one thing people practice. I think containerization is definitely one thing that you want to run your AI in some kind of simulated world or simulated approximation of your world, where if that entire thing were to be, so as to say, blown up or go to shit or whatever, you would still be unaffected. And then like so what I mean is go through a staggered expansion of the world or a staggered expansion of the boundaries. Like the equivalent in code would be, rather than running it on your system, you give it a Docker container and let it go run free in that. And then, because then you can figure out the limits and kind of where it's crossing the limit, and then you can because and also learn to think harder about a problem and state all the things if possible. But although overstating is also bad, maybe. Anyway, yeah, so that's my short answer, maybe.
So you were talking about so many data points earlier, like a few answers ago, about how there's so many
Yeah,
data points and how there's so many like metrics in AI where there's like for example, you can't specify pi in a computer because it's infinite, right?
yeah,
So for stuff like that, and especially with the growth of the use of AI, because of the million amounts of like data points and parameters and objectives,
yeah.
how does it affect like energy efficiency and what challenges does it create for things like maybe data center cooling or like the sustainability side of the the whole plane?
Right. Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I don't know whether like I have zero insight into how data centers are cooled, apart from finding which ETF has stocks that would benefit from data center cooling uh, price, like capital expenditure kind of. I myself have limited insight, but okay, coming back, I think, yeah, so I think the parameter sizes you see are very much I think one natural kind of check, I would say, or bottleneck on increase in model parameter sizes is that because of the increasing importance of post training phases, like not just one phase. As I said, there are like personality and RL and all those. Because of the increasing importance of that phase, there is a natural check on how big a model can be, right? Because the bigger you make your model, the harder you're gonna make those later phases for you. So I think that has naturally caused a kind of like people, like you see a lot more models come out which are in the 70 billion, 100 billion range, rather than trying to go to 400 billion. With respect to energy efficiency, uh, I think it would. I think, yeah. I think definitely there. I think since this tech, like just like I think since uh, people will come to expect a baseline level of AI available to them all the time, maybe free. It would, and nowadays because of the internet, this is accessible. Like what will happen is, yeah, there will definitely. I think it might definitely cause improvements in both improvements and expansion of national grids, at least in the countries where the average citizen is already at a level where they have a certain urge to play around with AI, because that creates a bottom up pressure to, and I think it might also lead to more use of energy sources like nuclear and solar, because traditionally the electricity demand did not need radical expansion, and like it was more an incremental type of expansion. But now this will create maybe certain localized yeah, like, so I think that could be one. I think there, so another competing factor to this is that having local LLMs as well. So I don't, yeah, so okay, so to answer your question, I think definitely yes, it would lead to expansion of national energy grids, and more yeah, like more exploration of the scalable everywhere resources like nuclear and solar. Because I think especially for, anyway, yeah, that was my short answer. Maybe I don't know whether, yeah,
Oh no, you're good, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, those were all amazing answers, especially on the technical side. So now for some rapid fire questions from my side.
yeah.
What would you say like your mindset is going into every day of your work, working as this AI
Yeah.
engineer?
So I think, yeah, that has varied a lot based on which place I've worked at. Because I think the first place I worked at was very much a B2B SaaS place, but building a very LLM centric product. So over there, it was mostly uh, one is fixing like whatever a customer and product and other product manager or leadership prioritized issues in the best possible way, in the timeline possible, in the best possible scientific way, and sometimes unscientifically, because you have to do a lot of hacks. So okay, mindset wise, so I think there are two mindsets. I think if you're working more on the product side, I think the sharding between the two mindsets becomes a lot more. So at while at ASAP, it was fun because it was new. So the product part was also fun because you're trying to use a new technology in product for the first time. uh, so I think over there there was much more sharding. I think at Amazon AGI there was much more alignment. So over there I was going in with the perspective of I want to help my team improve its abilities on this LLM the best every day, kind of. And like, am I doing the tasks assigned to me? Am I becoming a bottleneck to my manager or upstream? And we used to have org level stand-ups also, so there was an org level perspective also. uh, I think so. That was also one reason I kind of left. I mean, I would say is that Amazon Asia, because there was not much scope to research, is at least there. And after we had launched the Nova family, the new family was a lot far off. So I think at Petronas, there is much more alignment, because what this startup works on is we create post-training artifacts basically for LLM companies, or like whatever, like Meta, like all the set of LLM companies basically. So, and I am a research scientist here, but I think there's much more unification between both the roles. But I think my goal is, A, how are we on the timelines, and and B is what new interesting things we need to uh, what new interesting scientific things we need to work on. to make our product better. And three is actually research, like what are the conference paper deadlines, or what are the cool archive preprints we would like to have up maybe in 2 months. So I think these are so these are three, but I think these are more kind of three heads of one thing, rather than, I think at the previous two places there was one head which was, and then yeah. So I think those are the mindsets. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing to hear, like your shifts in your mindset. What habits or routines have helped you to stay productive and stay so positive and in such a fast moving field?
So one thing I do a lot is, I don't know whether this is good, but for me it is good, and I think it relates to something I said before. Is I take the Sabbath or sabbatical, whatever, from reading new stuff often. Like I will make these goals, like okay, I will not read anything put out on like archive or papers or Twitter or any maybe blog post. So I will not read anything new that has been published after 1st September till I do something new. Uh, till I do something new, or unless there is something very very emergency. Because and also another thing is, there is always so one thing is not getting into this consumption mode where you are just doing the doom scrolling version, but for scientists, uh, or even engineers, like it's very easy to, in an organization, just get lost in the Slack of that organization. Like you are just posting stuff on Slack, new papers, and you are actually contributing to discussions, and that is fine to an extent. But you don't want the actual creative part of your brain, whether it both be mathematical or coding, to get ossified, or to get yeah, like become like an appendix for a while. So I think that is very important. And two would be, I think, priority, like learning to prioritize long, like there is always, there is always some short term thing, like some email or some request someone has sent you on Slack to describe something better, or some Google Doc or some pull request to spend time on, versus reading the ICML proceedings and like coming up with like three interesting nuggets that drive your research, or like actually coming up with a repo or a notebook to create a V0 of your idea and like run it over the next 4 days. And actually, I've not done well on this, to be honest. Like I can do a lot better. There is always short-term pressure both from your internal self. Like this is a natural tendency humans have, right? Like if for example you see maybe trash lying around, you will ignore it for a while, but then you will feel that okay, I will should pick this up and package it or whatever. uh, so there is a tendency to close off certain things, and there will be a pressure from leadership also always. But I think you should, I mean personally, depends on whether the leadership is adversarial. That can also happen at times, but I think you should reason with them and explain to them that if they are placing you under unreasonable trade-offs, or maybe find some way, like taking PTO occasionally just to read and like relax and like think about a lot. Anyway, so you need to not just become like get into this operational mode, like operational or like hustling kind of mode. You also need to think about long term things, and like take time to learn new things that have come up in your field hands on. So yeah.
Yeah, and Mr. Gungal,
Yeah.
there's one part where earlier in your question, or earlier in your answers that you were talking about, which I thought was really interesting and
Yeah.
also like really surprising, and it probably very representative of the work output that you do. You were talking about having a research paper drought because you weren't doing anything between like a year gap.
Yes.
And for many people, like they don't have a research paper, or maybe in their whole lifetime they get to like
Mm.
one research paper in the college for like a senior thesis. But the fact that you said a research paper drought was actually so interesting, and also so representative of your character and like your discipline and all of that. Could you just talk about kind of like the research process, but also like what inspires you and motivates you so much to kind of produce at such an insane rate?
Right. Yeah, I actually no. I think my rate has been pretty, I think, bad, because since 2022 I got sucked into a lot of other things like product startups and like LLM training. But I mean, yeah. So I think okay, yeah. What makes so I think, yeah, one thing is to contextualize the drought comment. I think I was a PhD student, so this was my day job. I feel to some extent to publish. I think one thing would be is that, yeah, teaching. One thing I had a lot of difficulty with, and it's not easy to do it, is teaching yourself to work parallelly, because it typically in research what happens is you're working on an idea which, like, you should always work at least on two or three distinct ideas, and you should not let your frustration or like drowning in one idea, which is also important, to like, you should leave a big enough you should switch between the ideas in a way that there is space for you to explore one idea without it affecting the other idea. And this is very hard to grok, because for example, if your idea is not working, you can literally run five variations of it, right, and not work on another idea, for example. So make parallelizing your mind, or like becoming three selves, at least with respect to that idea, is kind of one thing that is important. I think another one is, I think I try I like I want I have this I think uh, you are kind of part of a collective, at least I feel that. And I have benefited from the knowledge of this collective. Like, it's like, if you drink from the river, you should build wells or something, like whatever, you should build reservoir, like. So it is also that kind of innate urge I have, because all I am in life is kind of because of these researchers who guided me and gave me stuff, and like Ravindran or Ed Hovey or whoever. uh, so it is my duty to do the same. Like, it need not be by via being an advisor, but via creating papers, and like whenever someone approaches you for. So one thing I think of is, I am not maybe actually selling stuff on the road or on the trains, but technically my papers are also my products I have produced. So if there's someone who's stuck, like, I should not, like, you should actually also become an evangelist for your work, and not an evangelist in a in a dishonest way. Like, you should also be critical and intellectually honest about your work. Like, you should also try to find faults in your work and like communicate them openly. So I think, okay, so but I think uh, other people using my work gives me happiness. Uh, and okay, many people say that H index and citations don't matter. I think that is true. It is true, but it is also false. In the very same way as people say grades don't matter, it's true that they don't matter, but they represent an aggregate of things that matter, maybe. So you should maybe think about them a little bit. Like, yeah, like, of course, every, like, the Goodhart law, right? I mean, it applies to evaluation metrics also, that whenever you a metric becomes a target, it ceases to be a metric after a while, because you have optimized the heck out of it, and the metric represents an approximation of, like, there's a large space of, anyway. So yeah, that's what I have to say, I guess.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I definitely feel like that's a very eye-opening and also like true statement that you said about
yeah,
like how the index or like the citation count that you have
yeah,
does matter and doesn't matter. Or doesn't matter. I feel like it does in the fact that if people are willing to cite your work and read through your abstracts and stuff like that, then it's definitely representative of the quality of the work you produced. So I feel like
yeah.
it's a good indicator. And lastly, looking ahead, what excites you the most about the future of AI, and what developments or breakthroughs do you hope to see in the next 5 to 10 years?
Right. One thing I'm looking forward to seeing is the whole, like, pre-training itself getting upended in a very radical way. Like, I think that will be really fun. Like, I don't know how it will happen, but I mean, I think another thing I want to really see, which I may play very less role in, is that we have still not got to a point where vision, like a purely vision pre-trained model, has then generalized to other modalities like language. Like, all we have gotten to is we train on the internet, and then we plug in a good vision encoder or like a good vision segmenter. or like other modalities as well. We have got to that point maybe with speech. I think there are some pure speech LLMs which, so I'm really looking forward to that part. uh, yeah, I think that okay, one thing I'm really looking forward to is that personally, I mean, this is a little bit out there, is that us starting to understand other organism communication more, uh, which using better generalization which we have, and by up, like we don't actually know what whales say to each other or dolphins say to each other, and the problem has been historically that we don't have enough researchers working with them on the ground that are in a position to run good enough tools to like you cannot actually record everything, or what gets recorded gets lost or not accumulated. But because you have LLMs which are, so there is this experiment, I don't know whether you know about it, the Calamang. Like there is this language called Calamang in Indonesia, which had only one or two native speakers. So all that exists about it is a grammar book that is off the internet. And in the Gemini tech report, they had done this experiment where you just insert that book in the prompt. So this language has not been seen on the internet anywhere, but it could still generalize to do well in that language, kind of like your linguistics Olympiad problem, but on steroids. uh, the but what the implication of that is, if we can make such a very nice book for animals, we can actually then start learning what animals are saying, kind of. And like, I mean, one day even maybe we will have interspecies communication. I mean, I don't know, but so this is one interesting axis I think I'm looking forward to. Like, if I had enough money and reached an asymptote in my career, I might have even betted on, but this is such a long term bet that I can't do something on it right now. Like, I might have done something on it myself, but I'm not so retired to do this over 10 years. But yeah, I think it would be I think it will something. So whether the economic incentives for it to exist will exist, the economic incentives for this to exist for 10 years, for it to then exist later will exist, is kind of hard to ascertain. But I think this will, so this is also important because, I mean, whenever we encounter, for example, any other kind of extraterrestrial life, we are going to have some kind of regime to learn how to generalize to it, to not end up in situations like the Arrival movie or something, uh, or like whatever, like other movies, Three Body Problem, or which are in this thing. So from that perspective also it's important, I think. Yeah. I mean, this, okay, a related thing to this is more broadly, I think, but I think this is not some new thing I'm gonna say. Like, I think this is a insight that has been peddled around a lot already, is continual learning and generalization to very unseen settings. Because that, why that is important is, we are going to encounter other planets and like deep sea, or like really new uh, uh, really new things as a result of technological acceleration, uh, which will hopefully happen. I don't know if it will happen, but I think so. I think the via AI we might see more scientific acceleration, which might enable more such encountering of new situations that we have to do things in. Anyway, so sorry, that's my thought about it.
No, you're definitely all good.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Gangal. This has been an amazing conversation. I feel like our listeners and ourselves are learning so much.
All right, so thank you so much, Mr. Gangu, for your time and wisdom. And
Mr. Gangal, this has been a fascinating conversation. Your work reminds us that powerful models mean nothing without thoughtful evaluation. You're shaping a space that decides not just what AI can do, but how well it does and for whom.
To our listeners, thank you so much for joining us through this entire 3-part series and throughout Season 3. If you found these conversations meaningful, share them with someone passionate about AI, research, or building responsibly. We'll be back with more stories just like this, where technology meets impact. Until then, keep building, keep questioning, and keep exploring your professional perspectives.